Hello, gorgeous, and welcome to the Women on Top podcast. I'm your host, Valerie Lynn, and with over 15 years of business experience, I became truly passionate about finding ways to support and hear from way more women. And what we know to be true is that women thrive when they are in their favorite position, on top in business, in relationships, in personal growth, and on top in being real and authentic to who the hell they are. So I invite you to sit back and enjoy the Women on Top podcast. Welcome to another incredible episode of the Women on Top, everybody. Today's guest is just someone so dynamic. I cannot wait for this conversation. So I have sitting here with me Dr. Saru Bala, and she is a licensed naturopathic doctor with a background in neurobiology, which I just love. She specializes in women's health and naturopathic endocrinology and is on this great mission to help women understand their bodies so deeply, just in the way that she doesn't want them to feel better just temporarily, but she really is trying to help women so that they build this like lifelong confidence and relationship and really clarity with themselves. So I'm just so excited. We're going to get into so many details and juicy bits for you here today. Dr. Bala, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Valerie. I'm so excited to chat.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Your content is just dynamic. I just want to come out here and say, I love that you have such a rich knowledge base. Like you are a physician. You are so, I just kind of put you on a pedestal in a way. But what I love about your content is that you're so real and you're very practical. And I feel like someone like me can understand some of these medical terms. And so I'm curious kind of where did the desire, I'm just going to kind of go a little bit rogue, but like where did the desire to go onto social media and start really sharing about women's health, like where did that come from for you?
To be honest, I was terrified of getting on social media to begin with, and it's just taken a kind of a direction of its own, which I am so grateful for. But I'm not gonna lie, I was definitely like, am I really going to be sharing medical information? And this was years ago. Right now, it's like, of course, who isn't on social media talking about this stuff? But when I first got on, I was like, I don't know, like, can I talk about vaginas and periods on social media? And here we are, 7 years later. So I was a little worried about that. However, I just felt, I see so many women all the time who are struggling with issues that I'm like, no, like I have so many answers for you. It's not just birth control. It's not just a hysterectomy. It's not just, take tranexamic acid. There's so many things that we can do. And I'm like, I had to scream it from the rooftops. And that's essentially what I started doing is, you guys, there's so many more things that we can do. And I wanted I just wanted women everywhere to understand their body better because as you know, as we all know, I'm sure someone either, whether that's us or someone in our life has felt very dismissed. They felt like nothing's getting better. They feel stuck. They don't know what to do. They don't want the options that are given to them. And they are just kind of going through their life feeling like, where do I go from here? So yeah, I just wanted everyone to know there are other options that align with what you want.
I'm so grateful that you are maybe not fearless, but it kind of comes across that way of like, I'm just going to share this information almost like you're being pulled from a greater cause, kind of like what you said of like, gosh, I just have to get this out there. And I guess I feel like inspired because for the professional woman listening in, sometimes I feel like we're so quick to say like, oh, who am I to share that? Or why should I be having some sort of presence on social media and really like talking about things? And so I guess like really quickly before we dive into some of the other things, like what would you tell that woman who is very knowledgeable, but just like a little bit afraid of, I guess, being seen online? Like what have you learned and what would you share with her?
That there is someone for everyone, right? I don't say anything super crazy that many other women online aren't talking about already. And I find the women who vibe with the way I say things or what I'm saying or who I'm speaking to. So there's always someone out there for someone, for you.
Yeah, I love that. I think to your point, like there's always somebody for, who's looking for you in that sense.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You talk a lot about, of course, women's health. And I just want to unpack, what are some common truths that women get told that you think is just not factual, not correct. And I'm thinking about, even myself when I was younger and like had painful periods, and it's just so easy to brush that off. And I feel like people, I always just thought, oh gosh, you just take an Advil and you just live with it because you're a woman.
Right. Right. And I think that's a really big one, right? Especially with the pain or the heavy bleeding or PMS. Like, I think the trope of the woman who's crazy before her period has just been so normalized in our society, in our life, like all of the symptoms that we deal with. And when I tell women, like, you don't have to have painful periods and you don't have to feel really miserable before your period starts and your period shouldn't take away from your life, they're like, that doesn't make sense. Like that, no, that I have a period. That's what it's going to do. Like we've just been told this. It's always been normalized. And so I think that all of the symptoms around our periods have definitely been a very common health truth that I hate that has happened. And I do feel like that's shifting over the last few years, thanks to social media. But it's still widely, you go to your doctor and they're like, well, it's part of having a period. Just take birth control, just take NSAIDs, just take, it's fine. And then the other one I would say that I hear often are, well, your labs came back fine, so you're okay. They're normal, you're fine. So I think between normalizing symptoms and then saying everything looks fine on paperwork, it's exhausting.
Yeah, it is exhausting and it's so frustrating and infuriating too. Like I've had friends who have gone to appointment after appointment and they're just getting nowhere. And then you're sitting there trying to figure it out on your own, trying to
Yeah.
self-solve. And it's like
Yeah.
a whole freaking chat GPT rabbit hole, right?
Literally. No, I know, like, I don't expect a single woman to come to me without having had a full, crash out with chat. Like, I know that's already happened and I know they've already done all the things and tried all of it because who isn't, right? Like, we all kind of have had that journey of DIYing our own health because we just haven't been given answers.
Yeah. So what should a regular period feel like? Like, give us what's the ideal? And then I think that helps give us something to kind of compare to.
Yeah. So anytime I'm looking for what's a healthy period, it's you. In terms of pain, it's going to be very minimal. I like to describe it as the soreness you feel after a really hard workout the next day or a couple days later. How do your muscles feel? You're not calling out of work because you were sore from a workout. You're not laying on the couch all day because your muscles were sore from a workout, right? You're not probably taking ibuprofen around the clock from a sore muscle from a workout. So that's the level of discomfort that is normal for your period. You might feel a little bit of cramping, you might feel a little bit of heaviness, but you can still do your day. Maybe you're going to do yoga or take a walk versus, a strength training workout, but that's fine. Like you're still able to go through your day. It's not keeping you from talking and going to work and doing your daily activities. That's the level that's normal. And I don't think a lot of women experience that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah. So that's why it's been so normalized. And then in terms of bleeding, if you're using pads and tampons, you're filling one up every 3 to 4 hours and changing it every 3 to 4 hours on your heaviest days. And then you're bleeding at least 3 days and no more than 7 days.
Mm.
And your cycles are predictable, right? That's telling me ovulation is happening regularly. So if 1 month they're 30 days, the next month they're 40, the following month they're 23, that's telling me ovulation likely isn't happening as regularly as we need it to be. So that's something that we would want to look into a little bit more. And then another piece would be just the symptoms leading up to your period. Are you really irritable? Do you feel like a completely different person? And the second you start bleeding, you're like, oh, I'm me again. That's not normal. The level of pain, the breast tenderness, the headaches, the migraines, all of those symptoms that can happen before your period and then resolve once your period starts or is over are all telling us lots of information about your body. So and I think people are like, well, it's just normal to feel that way, right? It's normal to feel miserable before your period. And I've worked with so many women who are like, I didn't even know my period was coming. Like that's where we got to. And so that's kind of what we want, right? Just maybe you're slightly more tired. Maybe you notice sleep is a little bit disturbed. And that's really the extent of it. You shouldn't feel the imminent feeling of, my period is just around the corner. That shouldn't be happening.
What about mood swings? Is that something? Because we've been taught that as well, right? Like if you're PMSing, then you're going to be in a wild funk. And I've certainly experienced that. So
I
is that normal?
know. I'm going to say it's not, because here's what happens is right after ovulation or right around ovulation, our hormones are peaking and then dropping, and then progesterone should come on board after ovulation. And what happens when we struggle really bad with irritability and PMS is that in our luteal phase, that's the phase where our body wants us to slow down. Everything just naturally slows down. Progesterone is the hormone that slows things down. Our colon transit slows down. Our blood sugar regulation slows down. Everything is slower. And if we are living in the same fast-paced lifestyle and to go schedule that we had in our follicular phase, that's where the disconnect happens, right? We haven't kind of worked with where our body is at in terms of slowing down. And so I always like to say estrogen is forgiving, progesterone is not. Estrogen, like, you can get away with the late nights, you can get away with the greasy food and the cocktails and the not prioritizing your blood sugar in your follicular phase. Then progesterone comes and she will hold up the mirror and be like, remember how you scrolled until 2 a.m. on your phone in bed? Remember how you went out really late last night? Remember how we didn't breathe and do any wind down before we went to sleep? Yeah, that's why you're irritable and moody and feel miserable and tired and your hair is falling out, is because progesterone's like, hey, you're not doing all the things that I need. And
Yeah.
estrogen's just the chill girl who's like, it's fine, go out. So that's kind of how I like to compare the two phases of our cycle. And so a lot of us aren't necessarily doing all the pieces, and we feel fine in our follicular phase because, again, we don't have
Yeah.
progesterone, and estrogen is a little bit more forgiving there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what a great relate. Like, I'm going to remember that forever about estrogen being very forgiving and progesterone, like, not so much. And
Yeah.
I definitely can tell where I'm at. And I feel like tracking my cycle has certainly helped with that, to kind of realize, like, where are things at here? I feel like that would probably be one of the pieces of advice you likely would give women if they're experiencing some of the crazy symptoms that we've all experienced. So I guess that's kind of my question is, somebody comes to you and is experiencing painful periods or having a lot of moods or different things going on even before that. Where do you even start on this journey to figure out what is going on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of people will jump to labs as, oh, I need to get labs done. I didn't get the right labs done. I didn't get all the labs done, or the range of my labs. And while, yes, those pieces are important, there's so much more to your picture than just what's on blood work, right? And for the most part, you've probably already done the basic blood work to say you're not dying and you don't have any like overt dysfunction or overt disease. So at this point, you kind of live in this dysfunction of, I know nothing's overtly wrong, but I just do not feel good. And I know something's off because things aren't working in the way that they should. So I have four, what I call my four pillars to hormone health. And those four pillars are the pieces that are affecting your hormones. A lot of us love to blame our hormones, but our hormones are just responding to the environment that they're in. And so if what's upstream, these four pillars, aren't working well, the downstream effect is the change in our hormones, the change in our moods, the change in all the symptoms that we're seeing. And so things like our gut health, our liver metabolism, our cortisol regulation, and our blood sugar regulation. Those are the four pieces that matter the most for the symptoms that we experience. Those are the four pillars. And so if whether that's one thing that's off, whether that's multiple of them that are off, a little bit of all four of them, I see all of that. And so when I work with women, I ask them all these questions about these four pieces. I'm asking them, what does their bedtime routine look like? Is there a bedtime routine? When are they going to bed? What time are you waking up? What do your cycles look like in terms of how often they're coming? Are they regular? I like to ask them about their nutrition. Are you eating around the same time every day? What are you putting into your body? Are you even aware? I have so many women who are like, I don't know, I think I eat this much, or I think I'm getting enough protein, or I think I eat enough fiber. And then they actually track because I make them and they're like, whoa, I did not realize what I was eating. So all of these little pieces are affecting whether they feel irritable, whether they break out in acne, whether they get hungover after half of a beer, whether they are sleeping through the night or waking up at 3 a.m, whether they have migraines before their periods, or whatever the symptom might be, they're all related to one of these four pieces. Or
Wow.
maybe all.
Yeah, I had no idea how much the gut was connected to all of this, which is
Oh, yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
And that feels like one of the bigger ones to try to also figure out, because I don't know, gut health feels like it could be such a mystery too. So
Mhm.
if you kind of suspect some of these things might be off, I'm especially thinking about, I guess, about the gut. It's like, okay, if I was going to say, I would like to look more closely at that. Again, like what are a couple things that I could do to start to elevate my health in terms of my gut?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, I think a lot of people jump to testing. They're like, I have to pay $600 for a stool test. And
Totally.
then you really don't. I barely use stool testing for people. It's very rare that I
Wow.
do it. I use it when I get stuck and when, we've tried things are slightly improving, but we're not seeing that huge improvement. And I've had to use it. I can count on two hands how many times I've had to use it in the
Oh my
last 6 years.
gosh.
So it's
I'm
not as
surprised.
often as you think. You can get a lot of information by understanding your body. And I think a lot of us, we're just not taught that, right? We aren't taught how to connect the pieces and understand the language of our body. And so, what I like to say is, even with bloating, right? If you're only
Yeah.
getting bloated in your luteal phase, that's a different problem than getting bloated after every meal or getting bloated at the end of the day. All three of these are bloating, but they're all very different. And so if you have no idea, if you're just like, yeah, I get bloated, if you don't know when it's happening, you don't know what triggers it or if anything triggers it, you don't know where in your cycle you are, all of these pieces are really important. So the most important thing that you can do is just understand your body. What is it even saying and when is it saying it? Like those are all such important pieces. How much are you bleeding? How often are your periods coming? Are you ovulating? So many women just think that their app tells them because it predicts based on when they have their period that they
Mhm.
are tracking ovulation. And that's not the case. So, are you ovulating? How do you know? Because you need some kind of objective measure or marker to know. How long are your periods? Tracking your symptoms. Do I feel irritable just a couple of days before my period, or is it a full 2 weeks? Am I having bloating in my luteal phase, or is it after meals, or is it at the end of the day? That's more of a stress response, right? So there's really so many factors that we can think about,
Yeah.
and I don't want you to necessarily become like type A about paying too much attention to every single symptom because then you're
Okay.
so in your head and, like, oh my God, I can't eat this. I can't do this. I don't want it to be that way. But I do, if you know bloating is on your list of concerns, when do you get it? Where are you at in your cycle? That, just kind of having some level of awareness and being in tune with your own body is going to help you figure out what your body is trying to say. Is it a hormonal fluctuation issue? Is it a gut dysbiosis issue? um, Things like that.
Wow. So it really, I mean, it kind of does come down to tracking in a way, just because that's the only way to put the pieces together. Like, how would we even tell the
Mm,
story if we don't have all of the
exactly. E
information? Um,
exactly.
and I am really impressed that you don't necessarily rely on the stool tests, because that's something that I see all the time is like, if you get a stool test, you can really figure out what's going on with your gut. But it seems like maybe there's some work that we can do before we even get there to,
Yeah.
yeah, to have a better understanding. Do you also find that a lot of women are dealing with other, I don't know if it's like diseases or what you call it, but like endometriosis? I'm thinking of that. I'm thinking of PCOS. Do you think that, are those very big contributors as well? Like, do they sometimes, if you have something like that, does that trigger gut issues? Like, are they related? I guess is the question.
I think I would go the other direction, flip it.
Okay.
So those 4 pillars are likely the reason that you're having issues here, right? When you have endometriosis, your gut, your liver metabolism, your stress levels, your blood sugar regulation, all of that is contributing to further inflammation. And endometriosis is primarily an inflammatory condition. And so a lot of people think it's hormonal. It's actually an inflammatory condition that hormones can affect. However, primarily it is due to that inflammatory piece. And so all of those pieces are affecting it. So whether someone has endometriosis or not, a lot of what I do will still bring them relief. Whether we know they have it or not is not huge for me. So I'm not looking at what diagnosis are you coming to me with? I need a diagnosis. I'm looking at what are you experiencing? What are the symptoms you're dealing with? What's your body telling me? Not what is the lab telling me? What's the diagnosis code telling me?
Yeah. So then, if endo is kind of this inflammatory disease, I'm assuming that it can be reversed if we solve from the root, or
That's where it gets tricky. So it can again, it depends on every woman. I've seen kind of the full spectrum of things. I've seen women where their symptoms fully resolved, not needing any surgery. I've seen women where their symptoms were resolved to a point, Then they had surgery and now they feel fine. I've had women who had the surgery, who did all the things that we could do, and they still have some symptoms. So it really just depends on where the endo is, because it's endometrial-like tissue that's outside of the endometrium. And the endometrium is the inner layer of your uterus, which is getting shed. And so you get the pain because that inflammatory piece of when you have period pain, those prostaglandins, that function is happening outside of the uterus. And so you may get pain in many different places. I've had women who had endo wrapped around their bowels, which was causing issues with chronic constipation. So then they also, because weren't pooping regularly, then had other hormonal issues because your gut is tied to right. There's so many factors. I can't just pinpoint and say, you have this, do this. It's so nuanced. So it really comes down to, again, understanding your body, where you're at. So working on those 4 pillars are always going to be helpful. And then from there, if there's other pieces we need to do, that's where we tailor it a little.
Gotcha. Okay. So if I'm a patient of yours, I come in, I have all these things, we talk about the 4 pillars. Do you then kind of give like an action plan of like, is there a tracking tool that you recommend? Do you kind of say, okay, go start tracking your period? Like is kind of like the next steps as far as protocol?
Yeah. So I first gather a ton of information, and then I like to see, okay, which of these are kind of the biggest ones for this person. So I'll give you an example. I had a patient that I was working with who had severely heavy bleeding, like so bad that she's like, I'm out of commission for a full week, and she has 3 kids. And she's like, I'm just in bed for a full week, and then I need to get IV liquids because I'm so just depleted from fluids, because she was filling an ultra tampon every hour for 3 days, which is an insane amount to be bleeding. And she also had really severe period pain. And she was like, I can't do anything. And her biggest issue was her stress and her gut. So like she was focusing on, I'm taking this liver supplement and I take this tea and I tried this and I tried that. She was focusing on the wrong piece. It wasn't for her. It wasn't her liver. It was more her gut and her stress. She was, very anxious, understandably so, given that she's out for a full week of her month every single month with 3 kids. And so that piece for her was what we worked on. So with her gut, she had a lot of bloating that happened after her meals. She had a lot of constipation issues, and she had a lot of just, again, really bad anxiety, really bad stress. She wasn't able to wind down. She wasn't sleeping through the night. She was very wired all the time. So a lot of what we did, I gave her a plan for, here's what we're going to do in the morning, just for 10 to 15 minutes. Here's what we're going to do in the evening, your wind down routine. Here are a couple of supplements we're going to add in to help support these processes. And how we're going to support the nutrition in the gut with elimination a little bit more. So I gave her a plan on how to do that. And within 2 cycles, she was like, I'm bleeding less. My pain has gone down. I didn't have to go to the ER for IV fluids. And that happened within 8 weeks. So it is possible to see the changes. She was, I will say, very diligent as well. That also factors in. But yeah, so that's what it looked like for her. And I have several women who have heavy bleeding where that wasn't the same plan we did. So it really just depends, because for her, the stress and the gut were the 2 big pieces.
Okay, so stress, I want to know more about that. Like how is stress connected to heavier bleeding? Because I feel like I'm guilty of this. Like I so often I'm like, yeah, stress management, whatever. It's so much easier for me to focus on something tactical that feels like, oh, I can go work out. I can take a supplement. Like that all makes sense to my brain, but stress management doesn't feel as cool to my type A personality.
Yep. Yeah, what's so funny is I had another woman again who had really heavy bleeding. She called it hemorrhaging. She was like, I would hemorrhage every month. And I was always telling she had a lot of very stressful background in just her childhood and her young adulthood, and she had just come out of all of that, and her stress levels were very high. And I kept telling her, hey, we need to focus on, your bedtime routine and this and that. And she was like, I just don't understand how this is going to affect my periods. And she was really like, okay, well, can I have a supplement? Can I do this? And I'm like, I get that. And it's your cortisol regulation, your circadian rhythm, right? You're waking up in the morning, you're feeling tired. You're not able to work out. You're not able to go for a walk. You're not able to do your meal prep or do the things you need to do, because your nervous system is fried. You're going from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, because you don't know how to be still. You don't know how to slow down, because that's what you've trained your brain and your body to do is constantly be doing more and more and more. That keeps us in this very low level of chronic inflammation. And that's leading more to all of these other hormonal factors. That just level of inflammation is going to cause more bleeding. And so what's so funny is I worked with her for about 6 to 9 months. And at the end of it, she sends me this message and she goes, I like who I am now. And I used to never, she's like, I used to not be able to be alone with myself. I used to always be, had something on in the background, had a TV on, had a podcast on, had friends or FaceTime or something to keep me busy. And now I wake up in the morning and I notice that there's a bird's nest outside my house. And I realized I've slowed down enough to even pay attention to that. And she's like, all of that has helped my bleeding tremendously. She's like, I've made more money in my business than I ever have because I haven't had to take time off. And I'm working less, shockingly, and because I've been able to build, more of these things because I actually am more in tune with my body. So the slowing down for her was really, really big. And that helped her bleeding, it helped her fatigue, it helped her realize that she just hadn't been able to slow down in so long.
Wow. That's such a testament to that. And
Right.
it's so powerful to hear that too. It's hard for me to sometimes connect that the stress will manifest itself somehow physically. And I think for so many of us, it does. And we just don't realize it. We're like resistant to slowing down. And I'm
Right.
curious, what do you think that's from? Like, why as women, is it especially, I feel like especially to the woman attracted to maybe this podcast, like you're ambitious, you're probably a go-getter in some sort of way. And I feel like it's a little harder to actually slow down and to let that be good enough. So I'm curious, why do you think it's so challenging for us to do that?
I mean, I think we live in a society that rewards doing more and having more, right? I think it's very we're in a society of like when you succeed, it's praised. When you rest, no one gives a shit. So
Totally.
it's very like, oh, guess what I did today? I spent an hour staring at the grass. Like no one's gonna say good job. So whereas if you said I spent an hour emailing all these people and now I'm on this really, big podcast or whatever, they're gonna be like, wow, good for you. Like we're praised for that. It just is what it is. And so when we're in that, and then you kind of get caught in it, right? And your nervous system learns to, oh, if I do this, I get this and I get this. And then I get stuck in this loop. And then when you're in that fight or flight state, what happens is your body is shunting blood to your brain and your muscles to fight or flight. You got to think about how to get out of the situation. You got to use your body to get out of the situation. And so all of your blood flow goes there. It's not going to your organs. It's not going to digestion. You're not producing enough stomach acid. You're not secreting enough digestive enzymes. You're not able to slow down enough. You have to be in a parasympathetic state to digest your food. So then I get women who are like, my bloating always happens at the end of the day. That's because you got up, you started going, you checked your phone while you were in bed, you checked your emails, you immediately go into a sympathetic response. Then you get out of bed, you have 5 cups of coffee, and you're in another sympathetic response. Then you skip lunch because you're so busy that you're in a flow because you're in a sympathetic state that you couldn't slow down enough. Then you maybe eat at like 3 p.m. and you shovel food in your mouth because you're starving and you've been sympathetic all day, so you didn't digest your food. And then here we are at 8 p.m. You're sitting on your couch and you're like, there's food stuck inside me and I feel like a balloon is in there because guess what? You didn't digest any food all day. So when you're not digesting your food, you start getting bloated, you start having constipation, you start having GI issues. And that's leading to my hormones and my waist aren't getting eliminated as they should be. And that leads to I have heavy bleeding, I have irritability, I have headaches and migraines before my period, I have breast tenderness and night sweats. And then you're told, oh, you're in perimenopause. And then that is where my mind explodes. So it's all this big cycle of, well, you're in perimenopause, take HRT. Oh, take more estrogen. Oh, you need to be on progesterone. It's never, maybe you should slow down. Maybe you should stop and eat breakfast without a screen in front of your face. Maybe you should not be checking your emails while you're still lying in bed. Maybe we need 30 minutes to breathe and wind down and let our body relax before we try to lay down and fall asleep out of exhaustion. You're never told these things.
Yeah.
And then you're told you have PMS, take an SSRI, you have heavy bleeding, get your uterus taken out. Like it's very frustrating to me as a provider seeing it from the back end and just I want to scream being like, no, there's so many things we can do before we do all of the other harsh things.
Ugh. It is frustrating. And just even hearing you, I'm like laughing because I also understand it.
For
It's
sure. I
like,
mean, I act like I'm not part of the cycle. My husband literally tells me, like, "No, you need to stop doing so much." And I'm like, "No, it can't be that." And then here I am on a podcast talking about this. So, yeah, like, obviously, we all fall victim to it.
so I wonder, like, I guess I'm just feeling that stress and this relation to kind of cortisol is a big factor. And I'm curious, like, from your estimation, I guess, how much does it impact, would you say, what we deal with as women? Just kind of in general, if you could give it a
I
hyper.
mean, I wanna say 100%. Obviously, that's not rooted in any level of clinical data, but I'm gonna say there is not one person I've worked with who didn't need to work on it. So,
Mhm.
there's not one person that I haven't had to teach about slowing down and nervous system regulation and winding down and how your cortisol works and how melatonin works and how your circadian rhythm plays a role. Like, we have had to create that as part of a plan for every single woman I've worked with in the
Wow.
past 7 years.
Okay, so how does cortisol, like, I've been hearing a little bit about this more and more. I'm like, okay, what are the top things I can do to make sure that it's in balance? Is it just sleeping better, or are there some things in addition to that?
So many. There's so
Okay.
many, right? It's just the slowing down. It's gonna look different for everyone. It's what keeps you stuck in that state. Um, so it'll look different for everyone. For some people, it's not having coffee before they have a protein and fiber-filled breakfast. For some people, it's not checking their phone while they're still in bed or not checking their phone for the first hour so that their mind can still be slow and not just be rushed straight into a sympathetic state when they wake up. For some people, it's the wind down at the end of the day because they're like, I can't turn my brain off and I'm laying in bed with racing thoughts wide awake. For some people, it's going to bed at the same time every day. For some people, it's putting your phone away and not checking it even at the red lights, or not calling someone every time you drive, not putting on a podcast every time there's silence, not putting on TV in the background. There's so many little things we do all day that keep us in a stimulated state that we are not even aware of. The fact that we can't be just quiet and still is a sign that you're in a sympathetic state.
Okay, that was gonna be my other follow-up to that is what are some of those things that we can pay attention to so that we can start realizing, "Oh, I am in a sympathetic state. I need to maybe adjust this somewhere."
Yeah. So those are some of them, right? Is constantly checking your phone, constantly needing that stimulation. Anytime you have 30 minutes to quote unquote do nothing, you're scrolling social media, right? That's more stimulation. So take the break, do less, do nothing. When you are constantly shaking your leg, right? Your leg is never still. When your jaw is clenched. My husband's always like, you look like you're boxing someone in your sleep because I sleep with fists. I sleep with fists. Um, that's mine. I had one friend who would always say, "I know I'm stressed because my butt is so tight and clenched," and then she relaxes and drops 3 inches in her chair. So like, we all have a different thing. So really finding I know a lot of women who don't breathe all day long because they're just the next like, they're typing an email, and then they have this, and then their kid's screaming, and then they're going from one thing to the next, and they're like, they never took a real full breath
Yeah.
because their schedule is so full, or the skipping meals throughout the day, not eating at regular intervals throughout the day. So many different signs. It's really just about paying attention and kind of seeing like, oh, wow, I am kind of a lot busier. I find that just a time block, like write down what you did every 30 minutes and just look at your day. Like, what was I doing? I find that I say I'm stressed and I feel anxious on the days where I had more downtime and I filled it with screen time with scrolling.
Mm.
So just the little things like that, pay attention, just see. Again, comes down to tracking.
Yeah, I know. And the tracking is always something where I'm like, "Oh, I'm okay. Like, I don't really need
Mhm.
to do this," right? And then you actually
Yeah.
track it and you're like, "Hmm."
No, literally, there was a period in my life where I was like, "Why have I gained so much weight? This has never been a problem for me." And I was like, "Fine, I know I eat healthy. I know I'm fine. I don't eat that much." And then I tracked it, and I was eating almost 3,000 calories a day. And I was like, "Oh, I'm definitely not working out anywhere near what would warrant 3,000 calories a day." So we need to figure that I was eating not enough protein. I was eating way too many carbs, and looking at my diet, I wouldn't have realized that unless I had paid attention to it. So
Yeah.
tracking is really just gathering information. I think we're all very fast to stick out our arm and get a needle to draw labs, but the same information can be given to you when you pay attention to what you're putting in your body, what you're doing throughout the day, all of these little things.
That's so true. Yeah. We are like so quick to jump to letting somebody draw our blood or give me a
Yeah,
supplement, whatever, but
right,
we're not
right.
very quick to look
Yeah,
in the mirror a little bit
it's
more.
yeah, and, because obviously those are easy. Like, I don't wanna change anything about how I'm currently living, but I will add in a supplement or I will take, this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like it's almost easier to add than it is to look at that and be like, "Ooh, maybe I should be doing less of whatever."
Less.
Um,
Yes.
you talked about weight gain. I'm curious if that's another misconception because I am nearing the age of 40
Mhm,
and I've
mhm,
been like realizing that my body looks a little different than she used to. And I feel
mhm,
like
mhm,
in a way, I don't know if it's like recent or what, but I just feel like I'm looking in the mirror going, "Huh, this doesn't feel like what I want it to feel like." So
mhm,
is this another, and then again, you hear the like, "Oh, well, your body just changes when you get older." Like this is just part of the process. So
mhm.
is that real? Like what's actually going on there? And I guess just general thoughts.
Yeah. And I mean, this is where I think a lot of people start getting upset when I say this, but the research shows even for women, because I know a lot of people will be like, well, that's for men, even for women, your metabolism doesn't start slowing down or shifting significantly until your 60s.
Oh,
So, until you hit 60. So, I know, and that's a shocking one to hear
yeah.
because we all, again, don't want to look at, is it because, things are shifting in my body? Or is it because for the past 10 years, I've been running on a sympathetic state? Now my body is catching up and I don't have the same resilience that I did when I was 30, now when I'm 40, because my lifestyle hasn't changed at
Yeah.
all. And now it catches up, right? I haven't prioritized my nutrition. I haven't been working out very regularly. I haven't slowed down a day in my life. Even when I'm on vacation, I'm like, okay, now I'm in a new country. What all can I fit in into the 4 days I'm here? That's still stimulation, right? And so it's like, how much of it is our body? How much of it is my body has learned to utilize the food that I'm eating in this way to compensate for XYZ?
Yeah. So is stress pretty correlated to weight gain as well? Have you found that to be a big factor?
Totally. We have research as well to show that even one night of poor sleep is going to affect our insulin levels the next day. And so, if you are chronically not sleeping well because you're so stressed out, or you have a hard time winding down, or you're waking up through the middle of the night, or you wake up unrefreshed, all of that is impacting your blood sugar regulation. And then we have to be tighter about, okay, I'm eating breakfast, I'm getting this much protein, I'm eating this much fiber. And then, if we're not, our blood sugar starts to get affected by that. And over time, over years of doing this, we hit 40, we hit 45, and we're like, I'm just gaining so much weight. And it has a lot to do with our lifestyle and our habits and our, and it's the conversation that's not fun or glamorous that nobody wants to hear because obviously adding an estrogen is much easier to do. And people are like, well, now I'm sleeping better and now I'm losing weight because I added an estrogen, which is fine. And I also want you to be healthy long term.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to you taking the HRT and doing that. And I also want you to have habits that will help you feel good when you're 75 and you're not running around as much as you are now.
Right. Yeah, we want to build that like it's the long game that we're playing. That's what I keep
That's right.
reminding myself too. I
Yes.
wonder if there's a diet, not a diet, I don't like that word diet, but a way of eating that you highly recommend for most women. I know it varies so much depending on bodies and just all different
Mhm.
things, but is there kind of a method to, nutrition that we should be looking at?
Honestly, again, just tracking and seeing, first of all, is what I'm eating even appropriate for my level of activity and output? That's a huge one that I think a lot of us don't think about. And then I'm a big proponent of do what works for you. I have women who are like, well, I really love eating a plant-based diet. And that's great if it works for you, if your labs are good, you're not anemic, you have energy, you feel healthy, your periods are healthy, and everything is as it should be, then do what works for you. I am very big on get your macros in and get your micronutrients in as well. Are you getting enough protein? Are you getting enough calories? Are you getting enough of the nutrients from your food? Because I know we have protein chips and protein popcorn and protein this and that. You're not getting a ton of micronutrients from that. Sure, you're getting protein, but I want you to get the benefit from eating the whole food version of it. So I'm just very big on eat whole foods as much as possible.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good one, right? Like as much as we can,
Yeah, as
let's
much as
try
we
to
can.
eat like
Mhm.
whole
Right. I
food.
mean, if your snack is protein chips because you needed extra protein, great. But if your breakfast was eggs and veggies and a bowl of fruit, that's amazing, right? Like, and then you add in your protein chips, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you you can't have fun with what you're eating. I just want you to also prioritize focusing on food as a nutritious part of your day.
Do you have a position on fasting? I know that's a hot topic right now, so I'm just curious.
No, I'm kind of neutral on it. I'm again, what works for your body, I'm not going to tell you to not do something if it works for you. And to know whether it works for you, it's how's your recovery? How do you feel after fasting? Are you completely like your eyes are, sunken in and you can't get up? Or how do you feel? Like it's really, I think if you are having a ton of issues and then trying fasting, that's often where I would say maybe take a pause and wait until things are a little bit more stable, you feel good, you're able to handle a fast. Um, but otherwise, if it works for you and you feel good, do it.
What I love about you is that you really are so focused on like the whole person and not giving us just like here's the blueprint that you need to follow to a T and it's only one way and that's how you have to do things. So I
Right.
yeah, I really appreciate that you are very like individualized around our health and it seems like you're more focused on how do we learn more about who we are and how our bodies work and all of, all that comes with that. How did you learn that this was your mission? Like, was there a point when you were, going through school or just in your own health journey? Like, what was it that you were like, gosh, I have to help women specifically?
I think I always wanted to do women and do pediatrics. I couldn't fit both into my repertoire. So I started out that way and very fast, very quickly realized that I couldn't possibly know everything I could about both. So, and I really wanted because, having women are the ones having kids. We're the ones growing them. We're the ones feeding them, from ourselves for the first year, usually. And the better we can be, the more mentally healthy, the more physically healthy we can be, the better our community is, stronger our kids are. Like it is just, it comes down to us. And women are often the ones taking care of the men as well. There is no man that goes to the doctor unless his wife usually forces him or he's really needing to go. So, and that's just statistically what we see. And like, if we can't be the healthiest version of ourselves, it's hard to take care of everyone else. So I really wanted to I want to help everyone. And the way I help the men is by helping their women be healthy. And so and, kids too. So I want everyone to feel good
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
learning about your body is kind of the, the biggest piece, right? They always say, what education is one thing that no one can ever take away from you. And that includes your body as well. The more you know your body, the more you can go to a doctor's appointment and not feel like, wait, they're telling me this that doesn't align with me because you know what your body is doing and what is happening.
Yeah, that's so true. And it really is, I don't know, like the older I've gotten, the more I've realized for myself that health truly, like the saying health is wealth, it is everything. If you don't have your
Right.
health, you
You have
don't have
nothing, right?
anything. Like,
Yeah. 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 And
um,
I think we experience that, especially, I mean, I see so many women, right? They're like, I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't be with my kids because I'm out because of my period. And it literally, you can't do your life if you don't feel good.
yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like women are so powerful. And so to your point, like if we can elevate our own energy because we've put some of those pieces together, then the things that we could do in the world that we could kind of continue to shift and change.
Exactly.
Um, I'm thinking of the woman who is potentially going through something right now and trying to get some care and is, kind of running up against obstacles, like finding doctors that just continue to say, I don't know, maybe try this pill. Like it's fine. It's all in your head. That's my favorite. So what should she do? Like, do you just continue trying different providers or where to go from there?
It's yeah, that's where it's tricky because everyone does things in a different way and it really comes down to what are your goals? I think a lot of times people are just looking for the solution, but they don't even know what it is that they want for themselves. They're just like, I just want to feel better. I just want to feel better. This person's going to give me that answer without asking, what are you willing to change? Because the way I work is very different than the way someone else might work, even though the end goal is they feel better. And so birth control can do that, or tracking your cycles and understanding, am I ovulating and what am I putting into my body and how am I sleeping and how am I going about my day? They're the ends are the same, the means are what change. So what are your goals? What do you want to change your evening routine? Do you have the space to slow down? Do you want to change how you're eating and when you're eating? Do you want me to talk to you about castor oil packs? Or are you like, no, I just want to take birth control because I want to live the same way and I don't want these periods to be in the way. Those are two separate ways of doing the same thing. And so I think a lot of women don't know what, and I even get women who are like, okay, well, I think I'm going to get the surgery, but I also want to have this. And, but I also, and I'm like, okay, well, what are your goals? What do you want? What are you willing to make? What are you willing to change? And how are we going to get there? So you kind of have to work backwards in, okay, well, you're not willing to make these changes, or you can't make these changes, or you don't have the space to make these changes right now. That's okay. Maybe we can try an SSRI to pull you out of this hole so that you can maybe go for a 10-minute walk. Now you're doing this more regularly. Okay, what else can we do? Right? There's so many ways of doing the same thing. And it's really going to come down to, where are you at? What are you capable of making a change in? Because if you can't make the change, there's nothing's going to change.
Right. I like that. It's kind of like a work back plan in a way. And that feels like if you can kind of link it to a goal, maybe that's better than like, oh my gosh, I want all these things to change, but and all at the same time, by the way.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Totally.
Hold on, like let's focus on kind of where we're going and like build a plan from there. So I think that that's good for all of us to think about, like, what is it that you want, and then kind of and what makes sense for your life, and then you can fill in the gaps. You said something about castor oil packs. I'd love to hear about that. It's something that I've seen information about. I've dabbled a little bit with castor oil, but I would love to know, like, do you think they work? Is there science?
I am. Yeah. I am a big fan of castor oil packs. I love, love, love them because I've worked with many, many women. And it's almost always a part of my plan if you have endometriosis, if you have fibroids, or heavy or painful periods. And so, because I've seen it be so helpful for so many different things. It helps a lot just with circulation and inflammation. And so that's kind of the main areas I see support in. And it's so low intervention. Like, there's really nothing you have to do. You can sit at home, you can cook, you can work, you can lay down, you can sleep with it. Like, it's really very passive therapy, and you're not losing anything. Like, it's very simple. The worst comes to worst, nothing happens. Best case scenario, you feel better. So it's really like, why wouldn't you try it and add it in? So I do recommend it for a lot of people. And I often see that when you do it very consistently, usually within a month or two, you notice like, oh, my periods aren't as painful. I'm bleeding a little bit less, or I have less night sweats. And I've seen a lot of different things change with it. I've had one woman who shrunk her fibroid from the size of a grapefruit to a golf ball with that, and then supporting liver health. But those are the two pieces that we added in.
Wow, that's huge. So it goes through the layers of skin. Like, does it?
It's more, so the research in it was done for arthritis, actually, and it helps with, like, when you do it over your joints, it helps with the inflammation there. So the theory is because that pack, it's holding in the heat, it's driving it into the tissue a little bit deeper. I don't know how much that truly is happening. However, at the very least, it's bringing more circulation to the area and supporting your body doing its own healing by just bringing more blood flow to the area.
Interesting. Okay. I never knew. I was like, what is the magic that's happening in this oil?
Right. Yeah.
Is it like really going through the skin, or how does it
Yeah, not necessarily like working like, bioactively, like the oil going in and doing its little thing, but it's definitely supporting just inflammation by, I personally think that the biggest way that it's helping is just bringing more blood flow to the area. And a lot of us, we sit a lot, we're not moving enough, we have a lot of fascial tension and pelvic tension, and blood flow is just not great. And so just bringing some blood flow to the area can help a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense, actually. Like, the more blood flow you can get, the more healing that can happen in that space. So, okay, I'm going to get back onto the castor oil facts. Does quality matter? Like, do we need to be looking at a certain kind of oil? Okay.
Yes. Dark glass bottle, hexane-free, organic, cold pressed. all the buzzwords.
Okay, good to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll find some links and link them into the show notes for folks so
Yeah.
they can go check that out. Um, I, we have a closing tradition on this podcast. I have to say, like, before we even go into that, I just have loved the way that this conversation has gone and so appreciate your mission and the work that you're doing. And I guess just, before I even share the closing tradition, like, do you have kind of one last like message that you would want um kind of women like maybe who are Gen Z, millennial, just, learning about their health, like what would you want to just blast into their earphones if they're listening to this podcast?
Oh my God, so many things. I don't even know where I'd begin, but I think like just recapping a lot of the things we already touched on is going to be slowing down is actually going to help you more in life than doing more. I think a lot of us and figuring out what slowing down means for you is going to be a really big piece. And then the other piece is just tracking, get that awareness because nothing's going to change if you have no idea what's actually happening. You can't make a change in an area that you don't know is a problem. So tracking your symptoms, tracking your cycles and ovulation, like just know your body. It's your body. Nobody else is going to care about your body more than you. You're the one that has to live in it for the rest of your life. If you don't care enough to know what's happening, then no one else is going to care more than you.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. No one else is going to care more than you. So I don't know. I think we get the privilege in a way of like honoring
Yeah,
our bodies and learning
right.
about what they're telling
Exactly.
us. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the closing tradition on the podcast is that I ask the guest that I'm interviewing to leave some sort of reflection for the next guest, not knowing who it is. It doesn't have to be a perfectly curated quote or anything. It can just be literally whatever is coming to your heart to share. But what I'd like to do first is share what was left for you, and then I'll give you the opportunity to do the same. So my last guest actually had a couple things to share. So excited to share them with you. She was kind of referencing like a friend of hers who is in the middle of starting a business. And she shared that she said, my friend posted something the other day and two words hit me like a truck in the best way. And the two words are impress yourself. And she said, if you're making your younger self proud, that to me is such an important, powerful compass to use. And then she had a second piece. So she said, my ultimate piece of advice that I want to leave for the next guest. This is the best piece of advice I can give on any subject, anything at all. And in some of my hardest days, my friend told me 1 vote for your head, 1 vote for your heart, and 3 votes for your gut. It works like a charm. So
I love it. Well, hey, that ties right into what we talked about with our gut. So
definitely, definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that. I will say that story that I shared about the patient that I worked with who mentioned like all of the work that we've done has helped me to like myself. And I didn't realize how much I didn't like myself. So I think, that just really stuck with me of like, wow, there are so many of us who just kind of live on autopilot without even getting time to spend with ourselves. And I think, the more you like yourself, the more you like yourself, the more you love yourself, the more you can support yourself in the way that you need and other people can support you in the way that you need because if you know that, you can get more of it. So I think just getting to know yourself so well, whether that's through tracking or whether that's just sitting with yourself in silence and figuring out, who am I and what do I like, can
Yeah.
be really powerful.
I love that. I think that's so perfect. And what a beautiful way to kind of wrap this up. And like you said, the more that you like who you are, the more impact that you can have in the world. I think
Right.
we forget that. It's so easy to
Ex-
rush off to the next thing.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah.
Instead of worrying about making other people see us, do you see yourself?
Ooh, that's a good one too. Do you
Yeah.
see yourself? I love that. That's
Yeah.
great. Oh my gosh, you're so dynamic. I've loved this conversation so much. Thank you so much for making time for this podcast.
Of
You're doing such
course.
amazing work that I think is just leaving a ripple effect farther than you even know. So
Yeah.
truly appreciate you being here today, Dr.
Thank
Bala.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for inviting me and having me. I had so much fun.
Thank you for tuning into the show today. And before you go, I just have one quick favor to ask of you. There is a really simple way that you can help support me and help support this show, and that is to hit that follow button on whatever app you're listening to the show on. I'm trying really hard to level up the content and deliver unique value and amazing guests, and just hitting that follow button is the magic that will help continue to empower that. And remember that the world deserves to hear your voice and your stories, and you deserve a place at the top.